Hello there, fellow weebs. What's up? Welcome to class, weebs. Yo, Weeb Nation! What's up? If you've been around the anime community in the past few years, you might have noticed that the word weeb has become a staple when it comes to how anime fans refer to themselves.
What is up, my beautiful weebs?
But what if I told you that this wasn't always the case? Could you imagine that if you called an anime fan a weeb 4 or 5 years ago, you would have been met with an answer that, let's say, was not that friendly and that may or may not include some genitals? But things have changed and the anime community has grown a lot since 2015. Back then, the word weeb had a very different interpretation from the one it has today. If you want to find out more, join me in this class where we go on a little history lesson about the anime community and its identity crisis. In the recent years, anime started to penetrate more and more into the mainstream of... That sounded way better last night when I was drunk and wrote the script. Anyway, the point is that anime got more accessible in recent years, combined with the internet culture's continuous expansion, as well as the apparition of platforms that allowed people to form communities around it, and the instinct of self-depreciation that this community seems to have, transformed the term weeb into the most common way of addressing any anime fan. But in reality, weeb had another meaning entirely, and not a good one. Weeb stands short for weeaboo, which I'm sure some of you may heard of. Weeaboo is an English slang used to describe a person, typically of non-Asian descent, who prefers Japan and all things in Japanese over one's indigenous culture. It basically refers to people that are overly obsessed with the Japanese culture and think that Japan and everything that comes from Japan is the best thing in the world.
I feel it in my veins. I know who I am and I think I'm Japanese.
They are the same people that speak with kawaii and combine Japanese terms with English, have their whole house designed in a Japanese style, have a shitload of merch, a cat named Kiki, and wish to one day move and live in Japan.
Damare Kiki! No! Don't stress the trouble that stupid cat!
But what happened? How did the term meant to describe people that are obsessed with the Japanese culture became the way people address anime fans nowadays? To find out the answer, we need a little history lesson into the identity crisis that the Western anime community went through throughout the years. The beginning, or how I like to call it, Phase 1, took place in the 90s. This is the time when anime truly started to get into the Western market and the first semblance of a community started to form around it. It was still early and there were no streaming services like today that translated and brought anime overseas, so the only way for people to watch it was on TV and VHS. At this point, anime was still a very niche thing, watched by a minority of people, and I'm not talking about people that watch Pokemon on TV.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Clefairy!
Yeah! I'm talking about real anime fans that knew what anime was. In this phase, there wasn't really any term used to address anime fans in the West. They were just referred to as, well, a disgrace for society. Then came the term otaku and changed everything. In the early 2000s, anime continued to grow and expand in the Western market. The community started to slowly consolidate, anime cons started to become a normal thing, and overall we entered in what I like to call the cringe era. This lasted until around 2010 to 2012, and is a time where anime fans, due to their socially awkward and recluse nature, became really cringy and annoying. I think that this era was confusing for a lot of people, many not knowing where to draw a line between anime and reality, which, as we all know it's not a very good thing. Most of the anime fan stereotypes came from this era. This is when the word otaku was adopted from Japan and became the first generally known and accepted way that anime fans referred to themselves. The funny thing about the word otaku is that, like weeb, it's a term that the anime community adopted and changed its meaning. Otaku is a Japanese word that would translate to nerd, a mildly derogatory slang used in Japan and other Asian cultures to describe anyone who has a devotion to a specific subject or hobby, not necessarily anime, to the point of never leaving home. I'm sure that you already know that Japan is a country that has a social structure that revolves around the workforce and being a useful member of society. To be called an otaku, or to claim yourself as one, is like saying you have no plans of being socially productive and you were seen as being basically useless. People in the West were not aware of the negative social connotations that the term had in Japan and just adopted it. Larry, the community is growing, Larry. What should we call ourselves? I don't know, sir. Anime fans, maybe? That's boring, Larry. We need something more what, sir? Something more Japanese, Larry. I know. What's the Japanese word for nerd, Larry? Let me check it up, sir. Google says it's otaku, sir. Perfect. We'll call ourselves otakus from now on. But it's also derogatory used to describe socially inept people that stay home all the time and do nothing with their lives other than play games and watching anime. I know. It's perfect.
Yes, I'm a weeaboo. Yes, I'm a weeaboo. Yes, I'm a weeaboo. Yes, I'm a weeaboo. A filthy weeaboo. Naruto's so overrated.
This is the period where the word weeaboo started to gain traction within the anime community and was used to describe people that displayed embarrassing stereotypes related to anime. It was an interesting period because two different meanings of the word, one inside the community and other outside the community, have formed. In the anime community, the word was used pretty accurately at the beginning. It was a way to address people that were overly obsessed with the Japanese culture, but at the same time, it was also associated with the toxic part of the community that was aggressively obsessed with it. In the meantime, this is when the cringe compilation started to become popular, and because the anime fans were a lot of socially awkward individuals, they were included in a lot of those compilations.
Yes! Yes! Harun-sama! Harun-sama!
Streamers and YouTubers started to react to those, showcasing the cringe part of the anime fans to a wider audience. And thus, a semi-online hate movement towards anime fans has started. Now, can you guess what was the term that the people on the internet use when referring to anime fans? If you said weeaboo, congratulations! Here's your prize. Because of this, the people in the community tried as hard as they could to stay away from the word weeb and kept it exclusively for those that were really cringy and extreme. And you may wonder, from where did this term come from? Well, it's 4chan. It's always fucking 4chan. Even if it just recently became known by the wider audience, it was originally called Wapanese. In the early 2000s, it was used a lot on 4chan, often leading to unpleasant exchanges between anime and manga fans and those who were far less interested in Japan and its culture. At the peak of its abuse, in the mid-2005, 4chan moderators used the word filter to replace every instance of Wapanese with Weeaboo. which was a fictitious term originally created by Nicholas Gurewitch, and I hope I didn't butcher his name, in his Fairy Bible Fellowship comic strip, thus associating the word weeaboo with its current meaning. In its original context, the word weeaboo doesn't signify anything but something undesirable and deserving punishment. And this brings us to
This is the highlight of the internet generation. This is an anthem for the anime convention.
as time passed, anime became more and more mainstream to the point which almost everybody has at least one or two shows they watched and enjoyed at some point. The community evolved from this ostracized weird group of people to this meme generating machine that embraced the term that was once used to mock them. I'd like to think that in recent years the internet has become a more accepting place where people are encouraged to be themselves and to enjoy the things they like.
Like you.
This, combined with its large popularity and wide use, helped the word weeb evolve and grow beyond its original meaning. Not to mention the ever fast growing community with members joining every day that maybe were not aware of the real meaning behind the word and didn't know another term to describe themselves besides weeb, shape its meaning to the current one. Larry, they keep calling us cringy weebs, Larry. What can we do to stop them? Let's call ourselves weebs too, sir. What? They can make fun of us if they see that we like it. You're a goddamn genius, Larry.
Fuck you.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how we call ourselves. Weebs, otaku, failures in life, they all the same. The important thing is that we're all here because we like and enjoy the same things. Aww. So yeah, nobody should give a fuck. I hope you enjoyed this little history lesson in the Western anime and manga subculture. If you want more classes like this, you should subscribe and let me know in the comments what do you think about this topic. Do you have a problem being called a weeb? Do you prefer otaku? Or you just don't give a fuck? Thank you for watching and see you next time.